Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's that time once again. Let's talk metal. Today, I may not be talking metal as much as reading metal, but we'll get to that in a minute or two. Kind of a spoiler alert. This may not be the most interesting video to watch, but I'm hoping it's going to be an interesting video to listen to. Before I get to that, though, I want to touch on one thing. In the coming weeks, I may be missing some video postings. For quite a while now, I've always posted a video each Tuesday morning on my channel for folks to check out. Been very consistent with that. However, my schedule this summer is getting very full with a lot of stuff I didn't anticipate. So I may be traveling quite a bit more than I had estimated, helping family members with some stuff going on. As such, I may not have time to make and get videos posted on schedule. Sometimes in the past, I've had a lot of videos made ahead of time so that when I got busy with other things, I could just kind of quickly throw one up. It's why you were still seeing Christmas trees in the background even when I posted videos in late January. Currently, however, I don't have a lot of videos stockpiled, and frankly, I just don't have time to sit and make a lot of videos to stockpile. Some people, of course, spend a lot of time on their videos. As you can probably tell, mine are very off the cuff, but it still takes some time to think of an idea, pull out the records that you're going to use for it, look up and fact check things that you want to say, sit down, record the video, process the video, put a thumbnail on the video, et cetera, et cetera. From start to finish, that's the best I can do for a video. It's still going to take probably 2 to 3 hours of my time for the whole shebang. And right now I'm just being pulled in a lot of directions and got other stuff to do. So just want to make sure folks knew ahead of time that if a Tuesday rolls around and there's no new video posted here and there, apologies. There will be more video content coming along. I'm not going radio silent or, changing my name and running away and joining the circus or anything. It's just going to be a pretty busy time right now, and I may have to skip a Tuesday here and there. I'll do my best to keep things on schedule, but I hope everybody understands. All right, enough with the preamble. What's this video going to be about? Well, it's something that people talk about quite a bit in videos, on live streams and stuff like that, is, the good old days of buying records back in, the 90s and 80s. And we all have this perception that everything was like, a quarter back then, that you just had, all these wonderful heavy metal records laying around, and they were easy to find, and they were dirt cheap. And was it really like that? Wouldn't it be interesting to go back and see what things were actually selling for at that time? Well, it just so happens we can do that because I saved a lot of the old mail order catalogs I got from heavy metal dealers in the mid and late 90s. So I thought it might be fun to pull a couple of these off the shelf, flip through them, and see what some different records were selling for what's now almost 30 years ago. Some of them are going to be, real groan tests. Like, man, if I had only known, I could have bought it so cheap back then. And others, however, are going to be the other way. It's like, wow, that record's always kind of been the same price, or it was expensive even back then. It's not a new phenomenon. So I've gone through the catalogs. I'm not going to read every line, of course. That would be incredibly tedious. But I've gone through a couple of these and highlighted some things that I think might be just sort of interesting reference points because they've either gone up a lot, come down a lot, or stayed about the same over time. So in doing this, also discovered something kind of interesting about the timeline when I was buying stuff. If you've watched me on live streams like over on the Heavy Metallurgy channel, or just watched other videos I've made about new wave of British heavy metal, I usually talk about, I first got interested in new wave of British heavy metal in the winter of 1992, been like, February or something, the start of that year, when the 79 Revisited compilation came out. And I've always said that I then started, seriously trying to buy and get some of the vinyl items the following summer in 1993. In my head's timeline, that always made sense because summer of 92, I didn't have a lot of work. I was making a little money here and there, mowing, doing yard work, stuff like that. But I was also just saving up, stuff. Wasn't, I didn't have a lot of money, was just getting, sort of introduced to new wave of British heavy metal and more rare types of heavy metal. So it always made sense to me that it was the following summer, 93, that I must have started ordering stuff. But when I've dug through the stack and got a couple of these old mail order catalogs out, the earliest ones I have, and this is it, is postmarked May 1994. So it's actually a year later than I've always thought it was. And when I'm thinking about that, it makes a little more sense. The summer of 93, I worked all summer, but I came into that summer almost without a dime. And so that summer was, yeah, sort of just getting some money in pocket, and then heading, to school the next year. And then coming into summer of 94, I had a job lined up right away at the start of the summer, worked a ton that summer. So that it does make sense. I would have had a little more disposable income in the summer of 94 than the summer of 93. This would also have given me a little more time to have gotten deeper into the rarer heavy metal stuff and to have exhausted the local channels. I was hoping at first to find this kind of stuff at Camelot Records. Then I was hoping to find this stuff, at local record shows. Not a lot of new wave of British heavy metal available in record shows in the southern United States. So by 94, I think I was fed up with trying to find this stuff in the wild, and I had enough money where I could start to look for some mail order stuff. Went to Goldmine Magazine. This was a trade paper for all kinds of music. They had classifieds in the back, and they had a couple of people listing, hey, write me and get my catalog of heavy metal vinyl stuff. So I did that with a couple of them. They sent me catalogs, and I started ordering some stuff. But yeah, the postmark very clearly shows, 1994 was when these things came in, not summer of 1993. So hey, I've revised my own timeline there a bit. I was off by a year. This kind of thing happens when you do something for 30 years. So this was the first catalog I wrote away for. I got it from a dealer named John Allenson. He was a British fellow who had retired and was living in the Blue Ridge Mountains right next to Bluefield, West Virginia. He was on the Virginia side of the line, but literally right there on the line. A couple of things about him. He wrote, a small discography book called like Heavy Metal, the Vinyl Years. It was just like a short listing of all the records he knew of. It was very incomplete, but it was something at the time. There were really no reference books back in the 90s. He was also the person who had gone back to, Neat Records headquarters and bought out all of their old vinyl dead stock. And that was part of how he got into being a vinyl dealer himself. He had pictures of himself, hanging out with the owner of Neat Records. And, he's the one, he got all the leftover Venoms and, Warfares and Blitzkriegs and stuff like that. So yeah, you wrote to him. He would send you one of these little things about 4 times a year. And this is, again, early and mid 90s. So it's all just, typewritten stuff. You'd have to call him, tell him what you wanted, write him a check or send him a money order, and he'd send the stuff back. He was always very reliable to deal with. I bought stuff from him for at least 5 or 6 years. He actually lived not too far from where I grew up. It was a couple hours drive. And on one of the early catalogs he sent, once he kind of registered where he was sending it, he's like, oh, hey, by the way, your town's only, a couple hours from here. Feel free to come by sometime. I've always got tons of stuff for sale, and you're welcome to look through the collection, which I did once or twice. And yes, he had a really cool collection. He was very much into collecting a few of the big name bands, AC/DC, Motorhead, Venom. Those were some of his pet bands, and he had lots of variants and bootlegs and stuff of them. Last thing on Allenson, he also eventually opened a record exchange in Bluefield, West Virginia, in like one of the malls there. And I went to that store a couple of times to buy and trade. It was a normal record store, but he also did keep some of his, heavy metal vinyl stuff on the shelf. So it was really weird going into, a small record store in the corner of West Virginia, and you could literally see like, Tank vinyl and Warfare albums, sitting there in the used bin. Weird, but true. So let's see, what kind of stuff was John selling back in May 1994, and what kind of prices did he have? He had some picture sleeves on the outside of the catalog for Triarchy, Sparta, Joker. This was exactly the kind of stuff I was desperate to find by that time. Really wanting to find these new wave of British heavy metal records that I'd heard on a couple of compilations. I had found a couple of things in the wild, I had the Metal Explosion compilation. I think I had one more of the neat compilations. It was probably the All Hell Let Loose comp. I'm sure I had found at least one Saxon record by then, maybe a girl school record. But for the most part, I'd been reading about these bands and hearing them on compilations and finding almost nothing. So yeah, getting this in the mail with a chance to start buying stuff, it was just like, oh, big time, definitely level up moment. I even had a crazy, when I went through it, uh, just flipping through some pages, it's all color coded with different highlighters. There's a key here on the back that says, yeah, like orange, definitely want, good price. Pink, want, price might be a little high, good alternative. Because this kind of thing, you had to call and buy stuff very quickly. Even though we only did a catalog every few months, the best items would sell as soon as people got the catalog. So you couldn't sit on this, and wait around forever. A lot of times you'd call and you'd be like, sorry, that one's already gone. Okay, let's go to the next one on the list. I think I've got $50 to spend. Let's see how far down the list I have to go before I use up my $50. So yeah, I've got them color coded and all kinds of stuff. But without further ado, let's call out some things he's got listed here. So yes, again, this is going to be me reading items from a 30-year-old record catalog. There's nothing interesting to show here really, but you can still listen and see what you think of some of the prices. One of the first things here, and he's got the 7-inch section, the Blitzkrieg, Buried Alive with Blitzkrieg single. This, of course, one of the real classic UK new wave of British heavy metal singles. His catalog always was very bare bones. It gives like year, condition, price, title, maybe a very quick little quip about it. This one just says all-time classic. Has the picture sleeve, price 1994, $40. Yeah, I'd buy that for $40 right now if I could. That one, it's been a long time since you could buy that record for $40. That was a good price. He's got the Crucifixion, Take It or Leave It, 7-inch. That's on neat, of course. Had the picture sleeve. Price, $9. This record, I loved it. I think, pretty sure I bought it. Highlighted orange, these were the ones I was going after the most. I probably bought that copy from this catalog. Crucifixion is a band who didn't quite get their due until a little bit later on. Nowadays, a lot of folks recognize them as one of the more powerful, forceful bands from that era, and their records have gone up a bit, especially the cheaper ones like this. Been a long time since you could get that record for $9. All right, let's see what other kind of stuff he's got listed here. Bunch of early Iron Maiden 7-inches here. He's got Running Free and Burning Ambition. He's got the Sanctuary and Drifter 7-inch. He's got the Twilight Zone and Wrathchild 7-inch. Purgatory and Genghis Khan. All of these. Let's see some examples. The Sanctuary and Drifter with the picture sleeve, $40. Twilight Zone and Wrathchild picture sleeve, $25. Running Free and Burning Ambition, no picture sleeve, $25. So it's not like these were $5 singles even back then. You were still paying a little bit if you wanted the early Iron Maiden stuff on vinyl. Here's an odd one. He's that Joker single that was on the front cover. This one is listed in here for $60. It's one of the more expensive items in the catalog. It's got Back on the Road, backed with Pusher on it. It says Rare and Great, New Wave of British Heavy Metal, 84 with picture sleeve, $60. I doubt you'd have to pay $60 for that record anymore. It's always kind of lingered around that $40, $50 price tag. It's one that's not bad, but it's not really amazing either, as people got more into tape trading, CDR trading, eventually uploading this stuff and downloading it. People got to hear a lot of more of these singles and started to realize some of these things are just kind of mediocre. Joker's kind of a mediocre one. As such, it doesn't really command a huge price. If you pay $60 for these days, I don't think you're getting ripped off, but you're probably overpaying. That would be my, knee-jerk reaction. Next, we've got the Mithra, Death and Destiny, 7-inch. This is the rare one on lamp with the picture sleeve, $95. That version's always been a little pricey, but I don't think you'd have to pay that much for it nowadays. It's copies of it have always turned up pretty regularly. And if you wondered, yes, there is going to be a lot of non-new wave of British heavy metal in other sections too. We'll see some thrash items and some traditional metal stuff too. Let's see. But next up is another a new wave of British heavy metal one, a band called Trespass, who actually, as of the time of this recording, just released an album. I have not checked it out yet. S. Craig Zoller emailed me and said that, yeah, it's actually really good and I need to get on that one. So I'm working on it, Craig. We'll get there. But here we've got one of their original singles, the Jealousy and Live It Up single, with the picture sleeve was $40. You can get that cheaper than $40 these days. Trespass had two really good singles. Excuse me. But they've never been hard to find, and they've never been a band that a lot of people really elevated way up their list of bands from that era, other than Craig, and to a slightly lesser extent myself. They had a lot of good tracks, but yeah, they're a little overlooked, and as such, the records aren't that expensive anymore. Venom 7 inches. How much were those in 1994? Well, let's see. We've got Die Hard and Acid Queen with the picture sleeve is $9. We've got In League with Satan and Live Like an Angel. That is their first single with the picture sleeve, $25. That single now, you'd be lucky to get it for under $100. So, yeah. Let's pick, one more. Warhead, Back with Lady. This is one that came with, has three different sleeves. He had the set, all three, with the picture sleeves. There's like one band member per sleeve, if I remember right. The set, $50. So yeah, it was a good time to buy Venom vinyl back then. Yeah, and again, part of the reason these prices, may have been a little low even at the time was John had bought all this dead stock from the neat warehouse, so he had a lot of it to churn through. He even had the Bloodlust 7-inch on purple vinyl, which I still don't have a copy of. And back then, with the picture sleeve, $65. You'd pay a little more for it now, probably, but not a huge amount more. So yeah, even back then, this was already a pretty pricey item. What else have we got? Moving into another section, 12-inch LPs and EPs. The Crucifixion Green Eyes. I've shown this one on camera many times. On purple vinyl, it's $25 back then. This is a record you could get for $25 or $30 for years and years and years. And eventually people caught on that the band was good, and the record just dried up, and now you can't find it for $25. Just won't work. We've got the Parallax 12-inch EP on green vinyl, $35 back then. It would cost you probably double that now. It's more expensive. It hasn't gone stratospheric over time. A Witchfinder General, the Death Penalty. This is on clear vinyl in 1994. It's $30. I think I bought that one too. That one's also highlighted in orange, as is the Crucifixion. I'm pretty sure the orange ones are the ones I tried to buy. Witchfinder General on clear vinyl, still probably around $30 record. Over 30 years, it really hasn't budged much on price for, most copies. Sure, sometimes you find a copy that's dirt cheap. Sometimes you find a copy that people have way overpriced, but $30 is probably still about the going rate for that record. Venom LPs. Oh, this is going to hurt, isn't it? You could get black metal, a picture disc for original picture disc from 81 for $20. You could get the At War with Satan picture disc for $20. Yeah, ouch. Wish I had filled in more of my Venom collection. I got a little bit of Venom from John, but never very much. He was actually surprised when I started buying Venom. He's like, "You've never been interested." He literally told me, he's like, "You've never been interested in any of the Venom records before." I'm like, "Well, now I am." He's like, "Oh, that's fine." I actually bought his very last copy of Welcome to Hell and still have it. I think I gave him about $20 for it. Let's see. Moving on, let's get into some other albums. And here we'll start to see some non-new wave of British heavy metal stuff. Let's start with, why not? The Bathory, self-titled album. This is a US press, so would have been what? Probably the Combat pressing. First Bathory, all it says is Bathory, heavy death metal Venom clone. Okay then. Price, $9. Now, this wasn't the Yellow Goat, of course, but still. Original Bathory pressing, $9. Black Sabbath, he had a copy of Paranoid, the original Vertigo, in VG condition, $9. Don't think we'll get that for $9 anytime soon now. Broke His Helm, first album, Into Battle, $9. One thing with John was some of these smaller, like independently released vinyls, he typically had those really cheap. So if you knew what they were and could snap them up before someone else did, you could get some good deals back then. Celtic Frost, Into the Pandemonium, gatefold cover, US pressing, $7. Okay, some things really were dirt cheap back in the mid 90s. Let's see, what else have we got here? Exodus, Pleasures of the Flesh. Not an album I'm nuts about by the band. Has it listed as brutal death metal. Don't think John was really up on his thrash as much as some others. Going price back then, $7. That record's gotten kind of stupid expensive over time. I had that record on vinyl a long time ago. I traded it or sold it, and I didn't get much more than $7 for it, probably. What else have we got here? Grim Reaper, See You in Hell. US pressing, so that's RCA, $10. Record will run you probably $30 or so now. Halloween, because got to mention Halloween at least once. Walls of Jericho album, US pressing on Combat, $6. Saw a copy in a store recently for $100. Now, I think the $100 price was a bit too high. I think you could probably find that if you wanted it for somewhere between 30 and 50. But it was $6. So yeah, we're definitely in the feel bad moments section of the thing now. Holy Terror, Terror and Submission, album that that's highly vaunted these days. Comment only says vocal sounds like Udo. No. Anyway, you could have gotten Terror and Submission for $8 back then. Flip through a few more here. We've got Merciful Fate's The Beginning. It's only Merciful Fate album listed, $7. Overkill's Taking Over, $7. We've got Saint Vitus, the self-titled first LP, $12. I had that highlighted, but it was in green. Green was a lot further down this chain. It says neat, but it could wait. I'd like to get it very cheap. I waited a long time to get that record, and it was not cheap. So yeah, kind of blew it on that one. Let's see. Here's an interesting one that's kind of oddly high by our standards now. The Saracen, Heroes, Saints, and Fools album, $35. You could probably get that cheaper now. I like that album. I think it's pretty cool, but it's not a particularly popular one. Not really considered top tier new wave of British heavy metal by most folks. Sabotage, Siren, says rare first pressing of this monster. I'm guessing that means it was the blue cover with the ship. And going price, black vinyl, $15. Ouch. Even if that was the creepy elf children with the knives cover, that's still not a bad price for it. Slayer's Rain in Blood on vinyl could be yours for $8. Let's see, a few more. We're almost to the end. Venom. More Venom feel bad moments. Welcome to Hell. Yep, the debut album, $12. Like I said, I got his last copy, and I think I gave him 24, but that was a few years later. That was not in 94. I think this is the most expensive record in the catalog. The next one, White Boy and the Average Rat Band, one that I've referenced from time to time, is it listed as same killer metal, incredibly rare, $90. That's a record these days that would probably cost you, I don't know, 500 or more. I've seen copies go for some pretty stupid money. The deal with that, John kind of helped rediscover that band because they were from the same area he lived in. The record had been recorded, earlier than that. It's listed as 83 here. And somehow or another, he kind of stumbled into the guy, got leftover copies from the guy. And so for a while, yeah, you could get that album from John, but, he knew it was a rare record and pretty great. So yeah, in 94, you had to pay $90 for a copy of that. He burned through them pretty fast, if I remember correctly. Last few to look at. Witchcross, Fit for Fight, very popular album these days. A lot of people looking for that one. Back then, you could have gotten the UK pressing for $9. I had it in orange, but I don't think I bought it. I think I only had so much money to go around. The last one, the Brute Force compilation. A lot of folks know that one. One of the more popular and also easier to find new wave of British heavy metal comps. Listed price here, $20. We'll come back to that price when we look at catalog number 2 in a minute. So brute force, 20 bucks. It's about what you'd pay for it today. Hasn't really shifted much. He also had the Rock Snacks compilation. That was a rare one, about $50. And you'd probably still pay 40 to 50 bucks today. So again, not all of these records have gone up a ton. Some of them have. But as you can see, some of this stuff was already kind of pricey or had already kind of found its price point even by 1994. So that's what I was shopping out of in 94. There was one other dealer that I also contacted from that same set of classified ads. This guy's name was Primo. He was in New York, sold vinyl for years, bought from him for years. As I recall, he eventually got out of the record business and started working on like a pro wrestling circuit. It may have been like a small regional one. It wasn't necessarily like, WWE or NWA or anything. I don't know. I lost track of him at that point. I've never heard of him since. But again, this catalog is postmarked November 94. I guess I don't have my first couple of catalogs because I should have some from him that date throughout the summer of 94. And I've looked around and I just don't seem to have them. So they must have either gotten lost or destroyed along the way. This was the earliest one I had from him. So now his layout was a little different. He always wrote, like a couple of sentences about each record. Some of it, trying to hype some of the records a bit, but, still gives you the, condition, title, all that. I'm not going to read all the hype blurbs. It's kind of pointless. But let's check out a few things here. He's stuff tended to be a bit more European focused than Allenson's catalog. So there'd be some new wave of British heavy metal, but maybe a bit more Euro metal, not as much American metal. But let's see what we see. He had the Angel Witch self-titled album, nice condition, $13. Highlighted in orange, did not buy it. Hey, here's another copy of the first Bathory album. So if John's $9 copy wasn't available, here's another chance to get it in November 94 for a whopping $18. $18, that's twice what the other guy wanted for it. I didn't even highlight it. Because reasons. I'm not sure I'd even heard Bathory by 94. I honestly don't know. I'd have to sit and ponder that one to try to figure it out. Okay, here's one for Aaron, the metal theologian. He, not long ago, was talking about this Australian band Blackjack, and he'd gotten an album by them called 5 Pieces of 8. He showed it off in one of his videos, played a little bit of it. He was really, into it, thought it was a pretty cool recent pickup for him. I'd heard of the record back in 94. I've never owned a copy of it. Even in 94, it was $65 in this catalog. I never bid on it. I've heard it, since then. I thought, it was decent. It's been a long time since I heard it. I don't remember much of it. But yeah, I never wanted to pay anything like $65 for a copy. We've got Blitzkrieg, A Time of Changes. So their first album, $30. That feels like probably what you'd pay today. Maybe it'd be a little more expensive. Hasn't gone up a ton. So again, even back then, you had to pay $30 for a Blitzkrieg album. Some other ones I highlighted out of interest. The Desolation Angels LP, one of my favorites from the era, kind of a classic. $50 in this catalog. That album has been $50 for the last 30 years. It never goes much above 50. It never gets much below 50. It's just always $50. And this is the Themes side pressing, to be clear, not the Rock Brigade pressing from Brazil that was done like a year later. Hey, here's Diamond Head, Lightning to the Nations. This is the Wolf Records pressing, not the white one, the Wolf one from Germany. And sorry, there's a little smudgy there. So let's see, $60. You could probably get that for less than 60 if you wanted that pressing now. And there's a lot more pressings to choose from now, too, with reissues. Okay, here's one that hurts, because I had a couple of chances to buy this record cheap, and I never did. Gotham City's The Unknown album. Now considered one of kind of the classic first wave of Swedish heavy metal albums. Back then, nobody paid it much mind, and you could have bought it for $15, mint condition. And right beside it, Heavy Load albums. You need Death or Glory, $13. Now, there's no mention whether it had the poster or any of the stuff with it, but even so, just a clean mint minus copy for $13. You buy that record, or you should. Stronger Than Evil, $12. Yeah, Swedish stuff was not very expensive back then, it seems. What else did I mark as being Interesting. Oh, one of the albums that has like the biggest hype blurb with it here is an album I've never once seen anybody show on YouTube. I have mentioned the band exactly one time when Marty and myself and Dwayne from the Lazarus channel did our heavy metal stream on robots and heavy metal. It was just a fun stream showing off album covers and stuff that, had robots associated with them. The band I showed was Riff Raff. They were a real early Finnish heavy metal band, and they made an album called Robot Stud. Well, in here, Primo had an album called Give the Dead Man Some Water, which is their third album, came after Robot Stud. And he's got this big hype blurb about it. I'll read a little bit of this one for fun. This is one of the rarest records from Northern Europe, all caps, underlined with multiple exclamation points after it. Fantastic early Pretty Maids style, tearing metal, but with more power and harsher vocals. Wait until you hear them. The last copy I had sold immediately! Exclamation mark. However, I was able to dig up one more for you lucky people. He who hesitates is lost. Mint minus $50. I don't know what that record would cost these days. I don't know how many copies have turned up over the years. It's not a band I ever look up. I have my Riff Raff LPs. I don't keep tabs on them. It might be a $50 record these days. It might not be that expensive. Riff Raff is not a band that's ever captured the heavy metal underground's imagination in the past 30 years. And kind of a shame because it actually is a very, very good record. His description's probably a bit overhyped, but I do like the record. It's the best of their three. I think you'd want to do a little homework before you ran out and paid $50 for it right now. Other things, something a little more familiar. Satan's Court in the Act. Roadrunner Pressing, mint minus $15. Shiva, Fire Dance. This one isn't a particularly well-known album. It's just one of those random ones from like the heavy metal label. Back then, it was $23. So not dirt cheap, not super expensive. A lot of these kind of records in this catalog are essentially about twice the price these days. If you wanted Shiva now, you'd probably have to pay around $40 for it. If you just look on Discogs, you're probably going to see copies like in the 40, 50 range. So yeah, this stuff maybe was, it was a bit cheaper back then, but you weren't getting, that kind of stuff for $8 a piece. What else have we got here? Wolf, Edge of the World, $20. Maybe a little bit more by now. Here's another one that has a huge hype. This one he's almost written a paragraph about, and it's an album I've never seen anybody show. I'm not sure I've even heard anybody mention it. It's Frankie Woodhouse, Something in the Air. Frankie Woodhouse played guitar in other bands. I don't know. I guess Al was just like a huge Frankie Woodhouse fanboy because, yes, he just goes on and on about Frankie's incredible playing and this is, a classic of our time and blah, blah, blah. And wanting $125 for that record. I did buy a copy of that record years and years later, not from Al. I got it on eBay and gave very, very little for it. And you could probably get it even cheaper now. Nobody ever talks about that album. I haven't played it in ages. I remember it being okay. I remember it also being kind of lightweight, a little bit more rock oriented, laid back. It's not a barn burner or a headbanger or anything. So yeah, it's kind of goofy to see this huge write-up declaring it, reading this blurb, you'd think it was like, this is the guy who taught Yngwie Malmsteen everything he knows. Don't think it worked that way. Okay, a few others getting into some compilations. Now, Al had the Brute Force compilation for $40. Remember in this catalog from John, could have gotten it for $20. There was some play to be done here back and forth. If you looked at both catalogs, Al sent catalogs around more frequently than John did. John kind of did it like once per season. Al did it maybe once every 2 months. I don't remember exactly. But, again, all this stuff had to be done like typewriter or word processor. There's not even, computer to this. So these things were a pain to put out and update and such. But sometimes you could notice that, wait a minute, this guy wants a lot for the record. That guy wants almost nothing for it. Let me call and see if he still has his copy and I can get it really cheap. I definitely was able to do that a couple of times comparing the lists. Other things here. Let's see. Metal Explosion compilation, $23. That's one from the BBC sessions. good sound quality, a couple of cool, unique tracks, an unreleased Angel Witch track, for example, you'd probably still pay 23 bucks for it today. No big difference. Here's King Diamond, No Presents for Christmas. So yeah, let's see, this is the Roadrunner pressing. Even back then, it would have been 30 bucks. So it's not like you could get King Diamond vinyl super cheap even back then. I remember seeing some like the King Diamond picture discs at record shows for like them or Abigail. They were $40 or $50 things even back then. So they've always been kind of pricey. We have the Oz Turn the Cross Upside Down EP, old classic from Europe. On here, 40 bucks even back then. So, yep, couldn't get that one cheap even in the day. We've got the Running Wild EP, Walpurgis Night, the 12-inch one. Even back then, it's 60 bucks. Yeah, I bet you could get that cheaper than 60 bucks nowadays. I don't know. I could be wrong. I haven't gone to Discogs and looked any of these up lately. But 60 bucks feels like, yeah, maybe it's gone up some. If so, hey, leave a comment down below. Let me know if I'm off. Sometimes I get stuck on these old prices and I don't realize when things have gone up a lot. A couple more before we call it here. The Holocaust. Yeah, live from the Raw, Loud, and Live tour. So this is the 4-track 7-inch, if I remember right. 35 bucks back then. I always wanted more of the Holocaust 7-inches. Never got them because they were always a little spendy. Not super spendy, but for some context, in 1994, the minimum wage in the United States was $4.35 an hour. I know because that's what I was getting paid while flipping burgers at Burger King all summer in 1994. So, you work an 8-hour shift, you take home somewhere around 34 bucks. So basically, it'd be like one entire day's salary to buy one Holocaust 7-inch. You got to think that through kind of carefully. Hence all the crazy, color coding and multiple highlighters and stuff going on. All right, anything else I had marked here? Triarchy, Save the Con, back with Juliet's Tomb. This is the second pressing on direct, came without a picture sleeve. Even back then, 65 bucks. You can get that record cheaper than 65 bucks now for sure. The first pressing, no. But the second pressing, yeah, you should probably get it for half that if you poke around a little bit. So, and we got, looks like 2 more quick entries. Riots, Fire Down Under, just as a reference point for something a little more popular mainstream. Sealed copies, 10 bucks. Not hard to get. And finally, the Metal Massacre 2. A lot of folks think that's probably the best in the Metal Massacre series. Still sealed copy, $17. And yeah, that will do it. So what have we learned from this? Well, we've learned that some records have gone up quite a bit in price. If you want Bathory or Venom, work on building that time machine, and yes, you could hit the jackpot. We've seen a lot of other records have kind of just maintained their price. They haven't really gone up or down much. And we've seen some things that used to be considered pretty rare and were a little pricey have actually slipped down a little bit over the years. Some of the things that people used to think were rare, over the years, more and more copies have turned up. A band member came out of the woodwork and had a box of copies left over. There's only so much demand for some of these rare, obscure records. In other cases, people just got to hear them, realize that, oh, this single isn't the defining moment of early thrash metal or early Swedish metal. We shouldn't be paying $150 for it just because that's what somebody asks. So yeah, prices go up, prices come down, prices sometimes stay about the same as they are. But if nothing else, I think it's kind of interesting and a cool look at what the prices really were like if you were trying to special order heavy metal vinyl there in the mid 1990s. So, time to wrap this one up. Now let's talk metal in the comments down below. Did any of these prices make you cry? Be honest. I am not too big to admit that, yeah, looking at a couple of these is like, oh, that hurts. That hurts a lot. Got something in my eye. Need a moment. Oh, $12. Daggone it. Why didn't I buy it? Any of these catch you? Anything here sound like, again, if I was way off on an estimate, if I said, I don't think this record's gone up much, and it has, please add a comment down below, educate me, and let other viewers and readers see that, oh, wait, no, that record actually is a lot more expensive today. I can't keep track of every record's price over 30 years. It's an impossible task. But yeah, let me know what you think. If by chance you really liked this type of content, let me know. I can pick catalogs from other years. I may have a couple from other sellers as well, and see what prices were like on some other stuff. If you don't like this kind of content, it's not something I necessarily plan to rotate to anytime soon. I know it's not as visually stimulating since there's not a ton to see, but still thought it'd be interesting to read through some of those and see what the prices of yesterday were really like. All right, with that, let's wrap this one up. Until next time, everybody take care, and as always, keep banging your head.